Hi there, welcome to episode 1 of Ask Paul Kirtley. In this episode we're going to talk about everything including the kitchen sink. We're going to talk about knives, we're going to talk about books, and we're going to talk about kitchen sinks. So, first question.
Edu or EDU asks, what's the ideal bushcraft knife? 4, 5 or 6 inches? Steel, handle material, sheath material?
Okay, so EDU, Edu, whatever you want to be called. Thanks for the question. It's a common question. People want to know what's the best knife to get for bushcraft, and it's really a personal thing. Everybody's different, and I know, and it sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but everybody is different. Some of the people who work for me, for example, one guy is 6'7". I've got females who are 5'2", 5'3". Everything in between. Hand sizes are different. Level of strength is different. What you want to get out of the knife is different. So I would say, as a general purpose, something is about the length. The length of the blade is about the width of your palm. That's a good starting point for your size. So if you're a bit bigger, you go for a slightly bigger knife. If you're a bit smaller, go for a slightly smaller knife. Unless you're going for a specialist carving knife, of course, where generally you want something that's quite short and with quite a stubby little handle so you can do nice, powerful cuts. But for a general bushcraft knife, 4, 5 or 6 inches are going to be suitable for somebody. 6 inches is probably the longest. You know, for a general purpose bushcraft knife. You could probably even go a bit shorter than 4 inches if you're a bit smaller. But for a general answer, I would say go about sort of 4 to 5 inches is a good general sort of size. But if you want a rule of thumb, go across the palm of your hand. That's a good size. So for example, those of you that are watching the video, you can see that my knife there is just a little bit longer than the breadth of my thumb and the palm of my hand. In terms of steel, again, common high carbon steel, 01 tool steel, if you're buying a handmade knife or a custom made knife, is a good place to start. It's not an expensive steel, it's not a fancy steel, but it works well, it holds an edge well. But it will potentially corrode if it gets wet and stays wet. So if you've got it in a leather sheath and the sheath is wet for an extended period of time, even a day or two, it will corrode. So if there's a chance of that, maybe you want a stainless steel. RWL 34 is a very good stainless steel, holds a very good edge, and actually I'm beginning to prefer that to 01 carbon steel. So my recommendation at the moment would be start looking at some really good quality stainless steels. They tend to be more expensive though, so that's the downside. For a similar sort of quality, they tend to be a bit more expensive in terms of quality of what you want the knife to do, in terms of how easy it is to sharpen and how easy it is to how good the edge retention is. And then in terms of sheath material, again, that's a personal choice. If it's going to get wet, if the sheath's going to get wet, then maybe go for, and you've got a carbon steel knife, go for a plastic sheath. If you're getting a custom made knife, go for a Kydex sheath. If you've got a bog standard Mora, it comes with a plastic sheath, and that's easy to dry out. My concern, for example, if I'm doing a canoe trip, if I've got a carbon steel knife and I fall in, it's not going to damage anything particularly. I can dry the knife off really quickly, but then the sheath is going to be wet for a day or two, and that's going to corrode my knife, which is why I prefer a stainless steel knife now. But if you're worried about if you want to use a carbon steel knife, but you're worried about the sheath being wet for an extended period of time, get a plastic sheath for it. Those are my general recommendations. Obviously, everybody's a little bit different in terms of the sizing, but that's my general recommendation. Good question, thanks. What's the next one?
Sean asks, have you any plans to write a book covering the skills you have learned and stories of your many adventures?
Good question, Sean, and enjoy your podcast, thanks. So yeah, it's a good question. Quite a few people have asked me recently if I'm going to write a book, either about skills or about some of the adventures, and I think this idea of combining some stories about adventure with some of the actual skills is a good one, because I think the skill side of things has been covered pretty well, both in terms of books that are, you know, very old, and also there's some very good recent books with skills in. There's also some fairly poor books with skill, you know, sort of skills in. You know, publishers like to try and put things in particular categories. They'll try and find a big publisher will try and find a book to put into a category. They're not always that good, but there are some very good books out there with skills. And also there's some good travel writing, there's some good adventure writing, but I think the combination might be something that is certainly something I do on my blog and I could extend into a book. So yeah, I will look at that, but I'm also wary of the fact that writing a book is a big endeavour, and anybody that I've ever met that's written a book says that it's kind of like a sort of masochistic exercise, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that side of it yet, but yeah, I'm building up to it, I think, and the more people prod me with pointy sticks and send me tweets saying we'd like to read that sort of thing, I think that might push me over the edge at some point. So watch this space, Sean, watch this space. Thanks for the question.
Tim asks, which knots should you use to tie up a tarp versus a hammock?
Tarp versus a hammock. Okay, good question, Tim. I think a lot of people can get hung up on specific knots for specific reasons. There's a helicopter going around in the background there. You can probably hear it on the audio, but I don't think it'll spoil things too much. You can use the same knot, particularly the one that you start off your tarp line with. If you do a event hitch, you can use the same, even if it's a piece of tape around the tree, even if you've gone around the tree twice for you to start off your hammock, you can still use that event hitch to start off the tying process. And you can use it on the other end as well. Pull it as tight as you can, use the event hitch on the other end. The thing I would say though, if you're using any knots that are quick release, then you've made it quick release by passing a bite through, as the event is, you've basically got one pull and the thing comes away. With a hammock, I would put another bite through and pull it tight so that you can do 1, 2 before the thing comes undone and you end up on the floor, and do that at both ends. But use the event hitch at both ends, that'll work well. Good question, Tim. And if you here's some shameless self-promotion. If you don't know the event hitch, there's some videos that show you how to do all the tarp knots on my YouTube channel and on my blog, and I will link to the event hitch on the video, and I can stick in the show notes, I'll stick a little link through to that as well. So if you want to learn that knot, if you don't know it, if you're listening to this, there'll be a link for you to learn that knot.
Hey Paul, it's Mark Yates here from Big Man in the Woods podcast. My question to you is about knives. Basically, I've been in the whole camping scouting scene for about 6 years now, and I've been using the really cool Moira Robust knife, but now I feel it's time to upgrade it, step up a bit, shall we say. But then I'm in two minds. Do I upgrade the knife, or using that saying, don't change it if it's not broke, you know? I love my Moira Robust knife, but when I do courses or go out camping with other people, I see they've got, you know, nice big knives, and I'm getting kind of jealous. What do you recommend? Stay with my Moira Robust knife that I'm happy with, or do I upgrade and get a proper full tang knife? Looking forward to your answers, and keep up with the podcast. Loving your work, Paul. Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Right, good question, Mark. Thank you, and loving the stuff that you're doing on the Big Man in the Woods podcast at the moment. The tick stuff was really good. So looking forward to what you've got coming in the near future. So this is the classic question. You know, people have a Moira knife and they get given them on a bushcraft course, or somebody buys one for them, or they buy it for themselves to start off with. And they're great knives, and there's certainly any beginner, I would say, get a Moira knife. Don't worry about getting anything more expensive. Partly because when you learn to sharpen, you're going to mess things up a bit to start off with, and do it on a cheaper knife rather than a more expensive knife. That's just a monetary thing. And then in terms of the crux of your question for me though is the full tang versus not having a full tang knife. That's the key thing. The rest is really about aesthetics, and we'll come back to that in a second. The question for me is, if you're in a position where if your knife breaks, if the handle breaks, or you can't use your knife, if that's a real issue and it can't be replaced, then you need a full tang knife. Because if you're on an expedition and your knife breaks and it can't be resupplied, clearly you're in the middle of nowhere, then that then causes you an issue. So the thing with the Moira is it's a tab tang knife. They don't break very often, but I do see 1 or 2 of them break every year on our courses. It's almost without exception when people are battoning, the handle splits away from the knife. It's just because the handle is molded around the blade and the tab tang of the blade, and at some point enough force is exerted and that will break away. It splits the handle. Another plane going over. We've got helicopters and planes and all sorts going over today. Peaceful, quiet countryside here. So the point is, with a full tang, that isn't going to happen. You've got one solid piece of metal. Now, whether it's handmade or part handmade or hand finished, that's going to a large extent, that's going to determine how expensive it will be. You know, and what you're paying for is not so much the materials, although there will be some more material cost to a nicer knife, as you put it, than a Mora, but a lot of what you're paying for is all that hand finishing, that hand making, hand stitching of a nice leather sheath, for example. That all adds up, you know, man hours or woman hours of work, and that's largely what you're paying for. You're paying for the craftsmanship. 01 tool steel, as often handmade knives are made of, is not that expensive. The major cost is of the hand making, and so it's really, unless it's critical you've got a full tang knife, it's really an aesthetic question of, do you want to have a nice thing? You know, you're working with something quite regularly, it's nice to have nice tools, and there's an argument that if you've got nice tools you make nicer things. It's the whole argument that Apple have about having nice MacBooks and nice iMacs. You know, people like using them, creative people like using them because it makes them, it's a nice thing to use in that creative process, and it's the same with your tools. The thing about Moras is if you're going to be battoning, again, if you want to do a lot of battoning, again, even if you're not far away from home, that's where I see them break. So if you're going to be wanting to do a full range of things, or you want a nice tool to use, then yeah, upgrade to a full tang knife, whether that's, you know, almost all kind of machine made or whether it's completely handmade, depending on what price you want to go for it. But otherwise, if it's just whittling and using it close to home, where if it breaks it doesn't really matter, stick with what you've got, save your money, spend it on something else, spend it on a trip, buy a canoe, do something else.
George says he really likes your videos and was wondering what the name of your folding kitchen sink is called.
Okay, George, that's a good question. So if you haven't seen my videos, the particular video that George is talking about, there's a couple of videos that features in. I have this little folding sink which folds up a bit like a pop-up tent, and it goes inside my billy can, and I use that for washing, washing myself, washing clothes. It's a 5 litre, it's actually called a kitchen sink, and it's made by C2 Summit, and I'll put a link to that on my blog as well in the show notes to this, so that you can find it. But that's what it is, C2 Summit 5 litre kitchen sink. Easy question, George, thanks, cheers. That's everything for today. Super, well, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for listening. If you're listening to this on a podcast, send your questions in. I want more questions. Send me questions about bushcraft stuff as well, not just about kit. Kit questions are always good. I use stuff and I'm happy to help where I can, but ask me questions about the nature stuff, the bushcraft stuff, the material skills. Happy to answer those sorts of questions as well. Tweet me at pkirt, that's PKIRT, and use the hashtag askpaulkirtley, or send me an email via my blog, via the contact form. You can do that. Again, put Ask Paul Kirtley in the title so I can find it in my inbox. And finally, if you go to the Ask Paul page of my website, there is a button there where you can record and leave me a message. So that's the quickest way to leave me a message, like Mark did in this episode. And it's nice to hear somebody's voice asking the question as well. So thanks to everybody who asked questions. If your question didn't get featured in this one, check out episode 2, which will be coming soon. More questions coming there, and speak to you soon. Thanks. Hi there, welcome to episode 1 of Ask Paul Kirtley. In this episode we're going to talk about knives. Actually, I need to do that, don't I? What are we talking about?
Knives, knots, and...
Knives, hammock knots, and...